Have a motion to approve the agenda, please. Councillor Post, Councillor Andrews, all in favor? Thank you. We have one disclosure of a pecuniary interest, that is Councillor Peters, and that is with respect to the seniors center discussion later on in the meeting. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just for the purposes of the record, Councillor Peters, you just need to state that you have it and what the general nature is, please.
Right, Councillor Peters.
Do you want that done now, Madam Clerk?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, certainly. Yeah, I have a family member who sits on the board of the senior center.
Very good. Thank you. All right, so I guess next is the singing of our national anthem. Mr. Renato.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, David Nairn, Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville. Due to efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to protect all individuals, the council chambers at Town Hall will not be open to the public to attend council meetings until further notice. Members of the public who have an interest in a matter listed on the agenda may, up until 10 a.m. on the day of a scheduled council meeting, email councilagenda@orangeville.ca indicating your request to speak to a matter listed on the agenda. A phone number and conference ID code will be provided to you so that you may join the virtual meeting and provide your comments to council. Members of the public wishing to raise a question during the public question period of the council meeting may, beginning at 8:30 p.m. on the evening notice. Members of the public who have an interest in a matter listed on the call 1-289-801-5774 and enter conference ID 695-037-834 #. Correspondence and emails submitted will be considered as public information and entered into the public record. If you require access to information in an alternate format, please contact the Clerk's Division by phone at 519-941-0440 extension 2256 or via email at clerksdepartment@orangeville.ca. This meeting is being aired on public television and are streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. Could we have a motion to adopt the minutes of previous council meetings on April 19th and April 26th, 2021? Councillor Peters, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any additions or comments? All in favor?
Yes.
Very good. Moving on to presentations, petitions, and or delegations. 11.1, we have our Deputy Clerk, Carolina Khan, who's going to give us an update on accessing bylaws. Ms. Khan.
Good evening. Can I just confirm that everyone can see me and hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we're good to go. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So if you wouldn't mind just giving me a thumbs up once you can see our website. Are you able to see the website?
Yes, we can. Thank
You're
you.
good to go? Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you to members of council for having me today. I'm here as a representative of the clerk's team to present to you, I guess, an accomplishment that we're very excited to share. This is part of our general initiative. As you know, as we've communicated to you, we've been on a mission to digitize and modernize the way that we're keeping our records at the town. And so this is part one of a multi-series part of different directories and records projects that we've been working on. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how our bylaw directory has been modernized and hopefully more user-friendly and easier to find information. We've been working on this as part of additional projects such as revamping our corporate policies directory, the way that our agendas and minutes are kept and making those accessible, a legal agreements directory, a whole number of things. And as those things get completed in the very near future, we will continue to roll those things out. So this is just step one. So prior to me showing you the functionality around it, however, we do want to make mention that this was certainly a team effort. We were lucky enough to have the great assistance from staff and community services, for staff that were redeployed to us during COVID. We certainly were able to make great strides in this regard of modernizing and digitizing a lot of the essential town records. And so we do want to acknowledge Mr. Raymond Osman, Darla Fraser, and Sharon from Recreation, who were so instrumental in collaborating with us, as well as IT, their whole team, in terms of helping us with the technology aspects of it. So without further ado, so if you can see our front page, when you go to the Town Hall tab on the top right, you will get a different options. We're going to the bylaws section. This is going to take you to our main bylaws page, which is our directory, all of the town's bylaws. So we went through quite an exercise to get to this point in terms of scanning all of the town's bylaws, verifying the information, making sure that they're OCR legible, so on and so forth. So we're actually quite excited to show you the functionality of it today. So as you can see, you click on bylaws, it takes you to this main bylaws page. We have bylaws in our directory that go as far back as 1964. We're working on putting in even older ones than that, and it is our goal to have all of the town's bylaws digitized and available at your fingertips. So we are well on our way, and we're certainly, as you can see, we have 5,277 records within the directory, and these are just the town bylaws. So just to show you the quick functionality of it, when you're searching for a bylaw, you would go to this keyword search. You would search, so let's say traffic. That's one that is a popular one that would come up, that would have a lot of amendments, a lot of iterations over the years. This one is a big one, as you know, there's lots of iterations of it. So you can see anything that has traffic associated to it. You can see the repealed information for previous versions of the bylaw, amending information, and then you can scroll for as much as 20 pages for anything that has traffic associated to it. So it's really quite a handy function. These fields up here, you can sort by. So for instance, if you wanted to show you the most recent traffic bylaw, you can apply the filter so that it starts with anything that says traffic as of 2021, which is probably the functionality that you'd be most interested in. And you can see the different amendments that have come through with respect to the traffic bylaw, and then scroll through as you would on another any other website. further to that, I'm just going to show you the frequently referenced bylaws. So these are the bylaws that are the bylaws that we find to be most requested, or regulatory bylaws that we know that people are most likely to be looking for. So just as a quick caveat, we're working on the aesthetic component of this, because as you can see there's I guess like a duplicate numbering thing going on here. We're all over it, and that's going to be addressed, and we're in the process. But because the functionality is already there, we didn't want to hold it up in terms of showing you what is available, because it's actually quite simple to find information. So as you can see, everything is alphabetized by the topic name. So starting at adult entertainment, scrolling all the way down to zoning. Let's pick one so you can see what the actual bylaw record looks like. So if we go into fence, you would click on the number of the bylaw itself. Wait a second, and then this will give you the bylaw number, the date it was adopted, the actual description of the bylaw, and then you can hit to see the bylaw, and it'll pop up as a separate window if a browser allows you to. If not, it'll just download onto your computer, and then you can view the bylaw as you see fit. So that's the basic functionality of it. I just want to show you just one more thing with respect to how you can see the bylaws. Mobile food vendors, that's the one I was looking for. So when you're looking for a bylaw that has amendments to it, this is what it's going to look like. You'll see the original bylaw and the number, and any amendment that has happened to that original bylaw, so to speak, will show up listed underneath. So in that case, you could just see the original bylaw if you just want to see that one singular bylaw, or you can download the consolidation, which will have all of the amendments wrapped up into this one office consolidation, so that it's easier for viewing and understanding everything that's happened with that bylaw. And the Clerks Division has just undergone an exercise where we have verified all of our office consolidations, so they are up to date now. They have, it was a bit of a lengthy process, but we're actually quite happy with the way that it is now. So this pretty much the functionality in a nutshell. I think it's pretty user friendly. And we'd be interested to hear any questions you may have.
Right. Well, Caroline, I just have to say I'm very excited to see this update. As someone who has spent an inordinate amount of time surfing and trying to find things on our website in the past, I'm sure all council members and all residents of the town are very excited about this. You know, the internal and external communication was something that was put as a priority by our town council, and the fact that you know, all of the departments have pulled together to pull all this information at our fingertips is fantastic. Councillors, anybody wishes to comment? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Peters.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and I echo the Mayor's comments. I do like the functionality here in step number 1. Congratulations to the team that have been a part of this. And I do like the consolidation feature as well. Like the Mayor, many of us on council do review not only the existing proposed bylaws, but we'd like to go historically, and this really makes it a lot easier. Just for the sake of PDFs, I know that at least that particular format will enable the ability to hopefully download quickly the existing files. But I really have to commend what I see. I'm looking forward to, once you go through step number 1, some of the other phases of this. And I think the aesthetics piece, I was going to make a comment, but I'm glad that you brought that up. It, you know, a first blush of looking at this, it looks like a lot of information, but once you get that figured out, I know that it will be a very attractive feature for anyone who may be looking for some information. But thank you for the update.
All right, Councillor Peters and then Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, first of all, thank you very much to the Clerk's Department and everyone who contributed. This is a pretty big step. Getting access to this information easily and quickly is a big milestone. You mentioned the number of records, and obviously there are a lot, and many of them are quite old. Can you describe the process for cleaning up some of these? As we all know, there's funny laws and bylaws, hanging around that are no longer relevant. What's the process for cleaning those up and trimming the list to those that are still relevant?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we firstly we consider the record set that we're looking at. When we're looking at bylaws specifically, our goal is to capture all of the bylaws, all of the town's bylaws, and go through the exercise of centralizing them into one repository. So that's digitizing the record in terms of scanning them, verifying their their characteristics when they were adopted, if they were amended, when they were repealed, and making sure that that's captured in this table index format, and essentially making sure that they're clearly reflected and scanned and legible for our directory. When it's different records such as agendas and minutes, or like for committees or other things like that, we do check the retention period for these records. So for records that have passed the retention period as set in our retentions bylaw, then that would be what would trigger us maybe taking them out of this repository, but we guide ourselves with respect to the retention according to our retention bylaw.
Very good.
Sorry if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I appreciate the answer. Thank you, Ms. Khan. I guess to clarify, is a future step of this process going to be to bring forward to council a whole bunch of bylaws that would not apply any further, or ones that have been now outdated, or is there any sort of judgment process happening as you go through all of these records? So
through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we have the regulatory bylaw review, which the different regulatory bylaws that are the focus, I guess, for the Clerk's Department and for the town to review will be guiding what we do with respect to bringing bylaws to council, which may seem outdated or maybe may need updating. But this exercise in and of itself is not inclusive of trying to review whether or not certain things have gone, certain bylaws are not in effect, I don't think, but I guess dated or need further review. Like, this wouldn't be the exercise to trigger that. I would say that that's more on the governance side. That would be a separate exercise. I'm not sure if.
Sure. Yeah, I think I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. Councillor Sherwood, you had a question.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank Clerk's Department, IT Department, and Communications for getting this up rather quickly. If you think about the workload that must have been involved in this big task, to have it up and launched now, just a few months after the launch of our new website, is quite an accomplishment. So thank you very much to all staff for that. Carolina, with regards to your demonstration, it looks quick and easy. I really like it. It looks like it's good for us old birds to be able to work our way around it. But I just wanted to ask you a quick thing. If I was to search a word, so if we'll use traffic as your sample. Will it only bring up traffic if traffic is the title in the bylaw, or will it populate it if traffic is a word within the bylaw document?
It will search within the document itself.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Very good. All right, councillors. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. Excellent presentation, and we're entering the 21st century here now. It's good to see. good to see that we've got access to all of these documents that are important to govern the town and to give our residents all the relevant information they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. 11.2, we have Sonia Wadalia. And Sonia, are you with us tonight?
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me and see me fine?
Yes, we can. So thank you for sending in your letter, Sonia. I don't know if you knew, but we did deal with this in a previous council meeting. In fact, council did vote to send this back to 7-Eleven and turn it down because there wasn't enough information given to us. But I'll let you present your letter and your thoughts. Go right ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just want to thank the chair and the council for having me. So once again, my name is Sonia Wadalia. I am the Orangeville and District Labor Council president. I'm also a healthcare worker. I'm here to speak to you regarding the 7-Eleven Corporation. And as you guys know, they did apply for 61 liquor licenses in 31 different municipalities with the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. So they're asking to be allowed to serve alcohol and beer for on-site consumption in their stores as they are deeming themselves as qualifying restaurants. This includes the site in Orangeville, which is located at 268 Broadway, and it's actually within a gas station. So I'm just going to touch on some of the main issues that why we should not be allowing this. One of the main issues is the increased accessibility and availability of alcohol. So people will be filling up their cars, and what's really to stop them from grabbing a quick beer and going along their way. All 7-Elevens, including this one along Broadway, are open 24 hours a day. And studies have shown that extended hours and days of sales are associated with high-risk drinking and alcohol-related problems such as drinking and driving or alcohol-related crimes. So every day, on average, about 4 Canadians are killed and 175 are injured in impaired-related crashes, and that's about 15,000 Canadians a year that die from impaired driving. This will put more pressure on police forces as well as our already burdened healthcare system, as they'll have to deal with the health consequences of people consuming alcohol and potentially driving. Another topic I wanted to touch on that I didn't really put into the letter because it was very limited in terms of space is the gas station attendants. Many of them are young, underpaid, and minimally trained staff that tend to work alone. They may feel intimidated or threatened to sell alcohol to an intoxicated customer. They may be risking their safety as well as any of the patrons in the store when trying to deny sale of alcohol or stop an intoxicated customer. And we can't be putting these young workers in this potentially dangerous situation. In particular, the 7-Eleven that I'm referring to is within 10 minutes walking distance from 2 different schools, and it's located near family-filled neighborhoods. And children can go there, get snacks, Slurpees, and such, and they may come face-to-face with the potential hazard of intoxicated customers. So the proximity to schools will also potentially increase the likelihood of underage drinking due to the accessibility and ease of purchasing alcohol. So overall alcohol consumption in Ontario has actually increased by 30% since the start of the pandemic, and the increased consumption of alcohol directly correlates to increased mental health issues. So a recent poll found that about 50% of Canadians reported worsening mental health, and this includes feelings of loneliness, depression, and anxiety. So the increased availability of alcohol will just further exacerbate these very prominent mental health issues. And the World Health Organization also suggests a connection between increased accessibility and consumption of alcohol relating to intimate partner violence and violence within families. Violence such as this increased in some areas of up to 30% since the onset of the pandemic. Especially during the pandemic, it's been very difficult for any of these families facing violence to get away, and it will put an increasing stress on our underfunded social services. And another issue I just want to touch on is small businesses. More than 180,000 small businesses expect to be killed off by the pandemic. I personally enjoy many of the small businesses and restaurants along Broadway. Bluebird Cafe is actually one of my favorites, and I'm sure many of you have also been there. Small businesses are an integral part of the community as a whole, and they will also be the key to kickstarting our economy once the pandemic has passed. However, right now they are struggling financially, and so are their workers. So we cannot expect them to compete with another multinational corporation to sell alcohol. and this may be what actually puts the remaining stores and restaurants out of business. So allowing the loosening of restrictions on alcohol consumption in our community will likely result in immediate and long-term public health effects issues, and we cannot allow 7-Eleven to succeed. Otherwise, this will result in dire consequences that will make our Orangeville community less safe for many years to come. Some additional information is that the Brampton City Council has condemned the 7-Eleven applications, as well as Oshawa City Council. Hamilton City Council took it a step further and filed their own formal letter to the ACGO. What this does is it slows down the application process and forces the decision to the tribunal. So we, as the Orangeville and District Labor Council, as well as many other organizations that also signed on to the letter, we have a couple that that just recently signed on, such as the Family Transition Place in Orangeville and the OPSU Liquor Board Employees Division, are asking and calling on the municipality of Orangeville to unanimously reject the proposal by 7-Eleven and to sell alcohol for on-site consumption at its convenience store in our Orangeville community. But we also ask you to take it a step further and write a formal letter as well, so that it kind of mitigates and stops this whole process from going through. Thank you. And if there's any questions, I would love to answer.
Well, thank you, Ms. Wadalia, for your presentation. I, for one, was quite happy with the alcohol distribution that was being handled by the LCBO and the beer store. I personally didn't feel it needed to be opened up any wider, but the provincial government had other ideas. So I'm with you. But councillors, if you wish to weigh in at all, seeing none, we will receive your letter. Oh, sorry, Councillor Taylor, go right ahead.
Sorry, Your Worship. Just as a clarification, are we using E tonight, or are we hands up kind of thing? What are we?
Hands up, baby.
Are we?
Well, listen, on the first call with Ms. Khan, I had you popped up there, but I'm sorry if you were in the queue. Let me open it up here.
I was not. I just wanted to see what's best.
I will do my best to keep eScribe running here. But at the moment, did you wish to make a comment?
I did. Thank you.
Go right ahead, sir.
First of all, thank you so much for your presentation tonight. I really do appreciate you coming, and it was an articulate letter, which I'd read prior, and then an equally articulate presentation. I do agree. I have great concerns about opening up alcohol further. Slightly askew to His Worship's comments. I think opening it up and having it in the grocery stores is just fine, and that would be the extent of it for me. So it makes me nervous the way it's set up with 7-Eleven currently, and unless it can be proven otherwise, I have great reservations about it. So again, thank you for your time, thank you for your letter, and I appreciate you coming out this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Very good. All right, all the best. Thank you, Ms. Wadalia. Okay, Council, we'll move on to item 12, our staff reports. We have 12.1. This is a recommendation that report CPS 2021-027, financing leases outstanding 2020 be received. Madam Treasurer, did you wish to make comment on this? No? Okay, any questions, councillors? Councillor Taylor.
My apologies. I'd just like to make the motion to receive, Your Worship.
Okay, very good. We have a seconder on that. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, any comments, councillors? All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to 12.2, this is a recommendation that reports CPS 2021-033 regarding the 2020 final tax rates be received, and the council pass a bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of taxes required for the town of Orangeville for the year 2021 and for the collection of Dufferin County and education taxes. May we have a motion to receive this report? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Very good. 12.3, this is a recommendation that reports CPS 2021-037 regarding the 2021 first quarter operating fund variance be received. May I have a motion, please, on that? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further comments? Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Madam Treasurer, on a related topic, I was wondering when we might hear the results of the 2020 fiscal year and sort of where we stood on that one. I'm sure it's in the works. I was just curious.
Yes. Through your worship to Councillor Peters, we're bringing our financial statements on May 31st.
Very good. Thank you. Any further questions on this motion? No. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 12.4. This is a recommendation that reports CPS 2021-038 regarding the 2021 first quarter capital progress be received. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood, second by Councillor Andrews. Any comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Very good. 12.5, a recommendation that reports CPS 2021-039 dated May the 10th, 2021 regarding education development charge update be received. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further questions or comments, councillors? All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to 12.6, this is a recommendation that reports CPS 2021-040 dated May the 10th, 2021. The 2021 community grants update be received and that council approve the distribution of 2021 community grant budgeted funds of $15,000. May I have a motion for this, please? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Anyone wish to comment on this? Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who this would go to. It's just a quick one. I guess I don't fully understand the relationship of Blues and Jazz Festival and the summer concert series. This money is going through them as part of a booking arrangement, or is the town? I'm guessing previously the town had covered the aspects of the bookings and that sort of thing, unless I was mistaken. So is this a new arrangement?
Well, my understanding, Councillor Peters, is that the Blues and Jazz Festival did pay for the performers through their funds. Madam Treasurer, can you confirm that was part of the application?
Just give me a moment, Your Worship.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perhaps Mr. Osmond can answer that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will make a comment. First of all, the Blues and Jazz, this is an attempt in this year to Blues and Jazz to launch their particular program, entertainment. It'll be on a weekend prior to the, kind of leading up, if you would, to the our summer concert series. So it'll be two separate events. Their $15,000 grant that they requested is for their entertainment, and they will do their event, and then they go following off from that weekend will be the event around the concert in Rotary Park. So there's two separate events. We're trying to beef up, if you would, the summer of 2021 and make it a little bit longer. And Blues and Jazz are trying to get things back up to speed, if you would. And this is their opportunity to try and do that. And making it later in August gives them the opportunity to get their work done. And hopefully things will work out over the summer period with the COVID-19.
Right. If I could ask Mr. Osmond, it's a follow-up to Councillor Peters. So if Blues and Jazz are going to be receiving $15,000 grant, essentially to pay for the performers, where will the ticket revenue then be flowing?
That's a good question, Your Worship. I didn't get into the revenue, but I will discuss it with our staff. But my thought process is that the Blues and Jazz would do their segment, and then we would do our segment. So the two pieces are separate. I didn't discuss the revenue, but I will go back and revisit it just to make sure that we're clear on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peters, did you have a follow-up, or?
That's sort of where I was headed, I guess. I mean, in a regular year, I believe their grant is in the neighborhood of 17,000. You know, they put on 3 or 4 full days of events. I guess I now understand this event is separate from the summer concert series. And so, yeah, my question would be, are we footing a bill and they take the revenue, which I'm sure will go back to future years? I think that should be public knowledge.
Right. I think Councillor Peters, they also receive $35,000 from the BIA. on top of our 17,000 from last year. So there's quite a substantial investment from the community, and that's the way it's been for a number of years now. So
Your worship, that is up to $40,000 now.
40,000. Okay, Councillor Sherwood, thank you for that.
Your worship, can I ask a question?
The BIA is holding that this year, or how is it? There's been no money transferred to Blues and Jazz for 2021. Can you answer that question, Councillor Sherwood?
No, I can't without contacting the board. Can I ask Mr. Osmond something?
Sure.
So we would be setting up the stage and all the audio and the screens, and they would provide the performance. And then once they're done, we have it all set up for our event.
That's correct. Once everything is set up, the stage, we're ready to go. That's correct.
Right. So that staging and all that will come out of our money that we've allocated. They're just paying for the performing and the marketing of their event that ties with ours.
That's correct. Yep.
I believe so. Okay. Well, it's only a couple months off, 3 months off. Very exciting to get some live entertainment back in our community. So I'm glad to see that. So we do have a motion on the floor here regarding this grant. All in favor?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. All right, moving on to 12.7. This is a report to INS 2021-027, a limiting distance agreement, and that it be received, and that council pass a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign a limiting distance agreement with Christoph Drozdowski, Betty Drozdowski, and Steady Corporation. May I have a motion to receive and pass this bylaw? Councillor Taylor, seconded by? Anybody? Councillor Peters. Any further questions or comments to staff here? No? All in favor? Very good. 12.8. This is a recommendation that report INS 2021-031 greenhouse gas emissions inventory and reduction targets be received, and the town adopt a community GHG emissions reduction target of net zero by 2050 in alignment with the ambitiousness of the Paris Agreement, and that staff develop and set an interim community emissions reduction target once specific mitigation actions are prioritized, dependent on level of impact, available resources, and support. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Peters. Any further comments? Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the departments and steering committee that's been working on this all along. I guess the comment I wanted to make was that Sustainable Orangeville had been involved to some degree in discussions and target setting earlier in the year. Excuse me. And as you can imagine, there were several votes, if you will, towards making this target as ambitious as possible. I think that's reflected in the community as well. Now, I understand, obviously, that not 100% of these emissions are under the control of the municipality. They have to do with vehicle emissions and community emissions and other uses, that are not just controlled by the municipality. But what I was hoping, perhaps as an amendment to this, is to be a little more aggressive on the building side, which are under the control of the municipality. So the net zero by 2050 is a fairly standard one that municipalities are striving for, still quite ambitious, but I guess I was hoping to have a discussion about maybe prioritizing the buildings within our portfolio, especially given the conversations we've had at recent meetings, and perhaps trying to achieve net zero on that piece of the puzzle of the emissions target sooner than 2050.
Mr. Brennan or Ms. McKinney, do you wish to comment on that? Or Mr. Jones, for that matter?
Through your worship to Councillor Peters, the recommendations of the report are designed to allow us to go back and additional work for reduction targets. If this is something I will recommend this get
trouble hearing you, Mr. Jones.
You're breaking up.
Maybe you could shut your video off, Mr. Jones. Maybe you could talk.
apologies. Is that any better?
Yes, we can hear you now. Very good, sir.
Excellent. My apologies.
That's okay.
What I was saying was that the recommendations of the report are looking at additional work that would be done prior to the setting of the shorter term targets. The intent is that we would look at what is achievable and practical for the municipality. If we are looking at passing something that is more stringent and we are looking at having targets sooner in one sector, I would suggest that this be referred back to staff for a subsequent report so we can discuss the achievability of it and what some of the implications of an approach of that sort might be.
Right. Ms. McKinney, maybe you could also weigh in on the project you were working on building, I guess, controls.
Thank you, through the mayor. And that project is a joint initiative, and certainly talked to Allison about it before she left while she was working on this document. So there's 2 initiatives currently underway. We're moving forward right now to start putting IoT sensors on some of our internal equipment to understand their operating efficiencies and get a bit of a baseline, monitoring their energy output and expected consumption. And then we have the project that we talked about in detail last week, where we'll be searching to find an external partner to work with us to make major capital investments in our building portfolio to both increase our operating efficiencies as well as reduce our carbon, our energy and environmental footprint. And certainly as part of those exercises, we would be able to support being very clear in the targets that are achievable.
Right. So, Ms. McKinney, is that something that maybe a year from now you'd be able to be coming back to us or sooner with some sort of an inventory and what your targets are for the buildings in our portfolio?
Through the mayor, I would expect that we would be able to do it sooner than that, but absolutely.
Councillor Peters, does that satisfy you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look at it both ways.
Two-stage process here, right? I mean,
yeah, you can try to target and work toward it, or you can build up toward a target and validate it. But as long as, I think we can address the piece this term so that, future terms know what they're striving for. That'll be important. I think it's incumbent upon the municipality to do a little better than we're asking the community to do, right? We're asking everybody to be net zero by 2050, and I think the town should aim to do a little better. So I look forward to discussing it further.
I think many of us are aligned with you, Councillor Peters, on that front. So I look forward to Ms. McKinney in the next several months to come back to us with a better idea of how we can achieve a better GHG goal. All right. So we've had a motion on this. All in favor? Very good. Thank you. Moving on to 12.9. This is a recommendation that report INS 2020-30 on-demand transit service be received, and that council direct staff to engage a consultant to assist in the design of a fixed and on-demand system utilizing the existing town-owned buses, and that council direct staff to implement the pilot route strategy based on 2 fixed routes and 1 on-demand route utilizing the existing town-owned buses. May I have a motion on this, please? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any further comments or questions, councillors? Councillor Taylor, then Andrews, then Sherwood, then Peters. Councillor Taylor.
Wow, thank you for allowing me to go first. Mine is quite quick. I would like to congratulate Mr. Lackey and Mr. Jones on this excellent report. I think this is exactly what we should be doing. It's innovative and will allow us to roll this out to the rest of the town, which is woefully overdue. So congratulations, gentlemen, and thank you very much for the work you've done here.
I'm going to go to thank you, Councillor Taylor. Yes, I echo your thoughts. Councillor Sherwood next, and then Andrews and Peters. Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Lackey. So how I'm reading this report is that the on-demand is temporary only until, for likely 18 months, until we get our own fleet here and we can go back to a scheduled 4 route plan, correct? So this is temporary for likely up to 1.5 to 2 years.
Mr. Lackey.
Through the mayor, thank you to Councillor Sherwood. That is correct. However, I would say that as part of the consultant's work, we may look at carrying on with on-demand service in areas that have low boarding rates. And that is something yet to be sort of figured out.
Okay, so just to follow up, I was just making sure this won't disappear when we get our 6 buses.
That's correct.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Peters.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Truly appreciate the report. Mr. Lackey, I also do like your background too with Minecraft. It is.
Looks like a community garden.
It certainly does.
Mm-hmm.
On the note of the consultant, do we have an idea what the cost will be? If it was embedded in the report, I apologize, but I didn't capture that. Do we have an idea what the consultant's cost would be?
Mr. Lackey.
Through your worship to Councillor Andrews, we had an estimate earlier and it was in the order of 15 to 20,000.
Okay, thank you. And my second question will be, I do like the concept of the on-demand. What about those residents that may find it cumbersome? I'm hoping that, it might be intuitive for, residents to jump on board regarding booking of or requesting. But is there a communications plan to, it may be premature at this point, but is there a thought of a communications plan to ensure that our residents know about the idea and the steps to, of course, book a bus?
Mr. Lackey.
Through your worship to Councillor Andrews, very good question. And yes, we will look at part of that. There will be a learning curve that is necessary for the public. There are certainly individuals that may not have the technology, and that will end up in them having to phone, but we will certainly look into the communication aspect of things. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Truly appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Lackey. Appreciate the report and the concept. I know some other municipalities have done it with some success, or at least collecting some data. And while I appreciate the solution for Orangeville, we can only get there once we understand the data. I do worry that we may be changing the system on the customer base, on our residents. People are already somewhat frustrated with the system in its current state. I know this is working towards a better system, but now we're discussing changing it within the next 6 months and then potentially changing it again 18 months from now. And I wonder if that's, how many iterations are we going through, and whether the benefit of this exercise is going to result in the system we're looking for, because ultimately high ridership and reliable service are the end goals. And I guess I have some hesitation regarding how much change the public is willing to accept when it comes to a system that's already under some criticism.
Mr. Lackey.
Through your worship to Councillor Peters, valid point. We want to give the public time to understand the new system. It's always been intended to go to a 4-route system, and that's our goal. And in that regard, we're hoping that we're not changing the system dramatically to affect our ridership. What we want to do is simply reach out to those areas that aren't being reached out now, and to make the system more balanced and more reliable so that ridership will increase. So,
if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Just as a follow-up, Mr. Lackey, if we get to a point where, infrastructure services believes that a fewer route system or a combination of on-demand system is the most efficient or the best for the users of this area, would that go against the direction we're taking on the construction of the hub?
Through your worship to Councillor Peters, no, it would not. It would remain the same.
So even with fewer routes or an on-demand service, that would be still a fundamental requirement of the system?
You are correct, yes. We do need a transfer point, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I know that healthy communities have good public transit, so we're working hard towards that goal, and a lot of good things happening on that front. So thank you, Mr. Lackey. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Post.
Thank you very much. One more question for Mr. Lackey, if I could. I see in the report that the recommendation is that we now change, while we're implementing the system, to just 2 fixed routes. So in looking at that, will that change what the 2 of the routes are currently to still encompass what we currently have now as 3 routes, or are we going to start underserving one area, forcing them to go onto an on-demand system? Or will we be able to incorporate some of those areas within the 2 routes that are being proposed?
Through your worship to Councillor Post, no, we're intending to have the 2 routes to mimic as much as we possibly can what we have now, and the flex route will pick up those areas and newer areas. So we're not looking to drastically change what you see now. What we're trying to do is use our own buses so that we don't have to lease buses. So in a nutshell, we will be mimicking as much as we possibly can the system that we have now.
No, absolutely understood. I appreciate that explanation. I think that'll make it easier for our residents to understand and be able to use the system effectively still. So thank you.
All right. Okay, all in favor? Thank you, Mr. Lackey. All right, moving on to 1210, Transit Transfer Terminal. This is a recommendation that report INS 2021-032, Transit Transfer Terminal be received, and the council endorses the Transit Transfer Terminal plan consisting of a dedicated drive-through road, 6.5 meters in width for Orangeville Transit buses from Center Street to Dawson. A terminal that has made provisions for future expansion. As such, the concept has provided space for 6 buses meeting specifications for Orangeville's vehicle fleet. A pedestrian connection to link Center Street to Dawson Road, thus reducing the need for the public to seek passage through the county lands, a simple bus shelter that is unheated with no washroom facilities, a terminal that does not include parking facilities, a drive-through road that will be lighted for appropriate safety measures, and the council directs staff to engage an engineering consultant to complete the final design of the transit transfer terminal. May I have a motion on this, please? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further comments from councillors on this? Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Jones, I suppose, or Mr. Lackey. One of the arguments during the whole downtown versus Center Street location issue was washrooms. Advocates didn't want it downtown because there weren't sufficient washrooms, and now it's being proposed to be built out on Center Street, but also with no washrooms. So I understand it's probably cheaper that way and they may not be warranted at the moment, but if this is meant to be a larger hub at some point, would it not be better to implement those at the early stages of construction rather than having to retrofit later on?
Mr. Lackey or Mr. Jones?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Peters. Based on our information that we have and the use of our current system, we currently don't have washroom facilities available at our transfer hub. It's not been an issue. It's not been something that's been brought forward by our ridership. It was certainly a complaint that was brought forward by those opponents of the downtown transfer hub, but it wasn't a concern that staff shared.
Very good. Councillor Sherwood, you had your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I did go in e-scribe, but I guess you missed me there. So are we approving which concept tonight, or it looks like the recommendation we're just getting a consultant? Because I guess my question is in the report, there's mention about the county prefers drawing A, but staff prefers drawing B. And I'm wondering if we're approving that concept tonight, and if we choose what staff's recommending, does that mean that the county will then deny us putting that there? So kind of a 2-part question there, Mr. Jones. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Through you, your worship, yes, I do. Ultimately, we've had considerable discussion with county staff on this, and of course, county council has made a motion for this to move forward in this location as well. Our differences of opinion are fairly subtle. County staff would like to see it as far away from the Edelbrock Center to facilitate any possible future expansion of that building. We have concerns with us getting too close to Mill Creek, too close to the floodplain, with potential groundwater and soil issues. There's going to have to be some work done prior, as part of the detailed design, to look at the soil conditions. And essentially, we've agreed that, you know, based on that information, we'll determine where the exact location of it is, somewhere between the two drawings that you mentioned. They really aren't that far apart at this point, but staff are confident that town and county staff will find a compromise position that will work for us both.
So we're not approving a design concept this evening.
Through your worship, yes, it's our intent that you are suggesting that the two drawings that you referred to are not that far apart, and it's generally what we're looking at moving forward with. What we need from council tonight is this endorsement so that we can hire a consultant to move forward with the detailed design, do the geotechnical work so we can see what the soil conditions are, so that we can finalize the location and move forward with construction.
I look at the two designs side by side and I really don't know what the difference is. Can you maybe help us with that?
It's subtle.
Certainly, through your worship, to Councillor Sherwood. One of them is a little bit closer to the Edelbrock Center, and one of them is somewhat closer to the floodplain in Mill Creek. So they are fairly close together, which is why we're confident that we can find a compromise between town and county staff once we have the additional technical information that will talk about what some of the challenges to construct it might be were we to move closer to the floodplain.
Okay, very good. Any, yeah, Councillor Post, go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Jones. Is there a final pricing on this final design that has been settled on, with the additional cost of the consultant being in there as well, the engineering consultant?
Mr. Jones.
Through your worship to Councillor Post, there is an allowance in the capital budget for approximately $359,000. That was the amount of money that was carried in our ISIP grant that we were awarded by the federal government. So there is that amount. Ultimately, once the final design is complete, we'll know what the construction costs, but staff is confident that there's sufficient money in the budget to cover both the final design by the consultant as well as the construction work.
Okay, thank you. One more follow-up to that. What the original design that we had talked about back a couple months ago now, that included the washrooms though, correct? So that price will change now with the removal of, or was that not included in the initial price discussion that we had discussed?
Through your worship to Councillor Post, when the price went into both for the ISIP grant as well as into our budget, we hadn't worked in the cost of a washroom. That was something that was discussed at the previous meeting, but those numbers were not part of it. Keep in mind, when we're doing numbers for budgeting purposes, they are fairly rough. And as you move forward and get the detailed design, you have a much better idea of what the costs would be.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, councillors. We have a motion on the floor on this. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? We have Peters and Taylor and Post in opposition. Very good. This motion passes 4-3. Moving on to 12.11. It says Orangeville and District Senior Citizens Club lease, and a recommendation that reports CMS 2021-010, the Orangeville and District Senior Citizens Club lease agreement be received, and the council pass a bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with the Orangeville and District Senior Citizens Club for 26 Matthias Street. Councillor Peters has a pecuniary interest and has stepped away from the meeting. All right, may I have a motion here, folks? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion or questions? Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. Upon reviewing this report, what I did notice was, of course, the change in the lease agreement. So my first question would be, what was the reasoning behind the lease agreement to 5 years and then subsequently 2 additional terms of 5 years versus what was originally the agreement of 20 years? And then I also have a question about maintenance and parking.
Mr. Osmond.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Andrews. The 5-year terms are generally typical for us now for all of our agreements. A couple of reasons. One is that both ourselves and the seniors would like to have an opportunity to come back and revisit anything that changes over time, and they felt that 20 years was a long time. And so we use the 5 years for most agreements these days for that reason. And also for our to review their operations, make sure things are good with the building, that kind of thing. And the 5 years just brings us all back to the table more often than waiting a 20-year period. So both sides agreed to a 5-year and then a renewal on every 5-year basis that we come back to the table and discuss any things that come up over the 5-year period previous.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Follow up, Councillor Andrews?
Yep. Yes, thank you for that response, Mr. Osmond. And as per the report, it does indicate that the seniors center would be, of course, with maintenance and other responsibilities. Just zeroing in on the size of that parking lot, and we know that there are other organizations and community members who will end up using that parking lot from time to time. Is it the responsibility of the town to continue the maintenance, or would that be kind of a collaborative effort with the seniors organization?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Andrews, they maintain the parking lot. They snow clear the parking lot. They pay for the snow clearing as well. And they put lines on it and so on and so forth. So no, we don't do any work on that site at all. We don't do any direct maintenance to the site, both the building or the site itself. With respect to the trail system, of course, that adjacent to the building, we do maintain that.
So that would include asphalt repair?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Osmond. I see in the financial impact, it's basically a wash that they, that they are, they're charged 20% of their annual operating budget and we grant back 20%. So it's a washout. But I wanted to know, does staff and does council get copies of their audited financials for verification?
Mr. Osmond.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Sherwood, yes, we do get a copy of their audited statement on an annual basis, which is part of the agreement, or we do discuss it annually. And it coincides with the amounts that we're putting forth in the contract, 20%. So from a maintenance perspective, as an example, in 2020, the numbers that would apply would be roughly $165,000 that maintain for the maintenance of that building and the things they do in that building. And so 20%, roughly $33,000 would be what we see in terms of a paper shuffle, if you would, between the two bodies.
Very good. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to make the point that this has been a wonderful partnership between the town and community groups for quite some time. And I appreciate the fact that it used to be 20 years and now we're moving it down to a different level. I think that's absolutely fine. I just want the relationship to continue. I like the financials. I'm very comfortable with it. And I don't know, congratulations to the Senior Center and to you, Mr. Osmond, on making this happen. And then the last thing, kind of tongue in cheek for you, Mr. Osmond, is that the picture that you used is from 1982. There's a wonderful Optimist shed that stores all the Christmas in the Park materials at the back of that lot, and a beautiful extension that this council voted for the roadway at the back of the lot. So, you know, we're missing all these great things in your picture. I don't know if it's a test to make sure that we read your submissions, but I did open it and looked. But thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. It will be updated. It was put in because the new one wasn't ready. So
very good, very good.
All right. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 12.12. This is the appointment of Integrity Commissioner. Recommendation that report CPS 2021-036. Appointment of Integrity Commissioner be received, and that Charles A. Harnick, ADR Chambers, Inc., be appointed as the Integrity Commissioner for the town of Orangeville, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute an agreement and any other documents necessary to finalize the appointment, and that council pass a bylaw appointing Charles A. Harnick, ADR Chambers, Inc., as Integrity Commissioner for the town of Orangeville. May we have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Peters. Any questions or comments? Councillor, I got Peters and then Sherwood and then McIntosh. Peters to start off.
Sorry, everybody, for winning the race there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. McKinney, as we saw later on in the package and correspondence, there's some discussion about the procurement method for the Integrity Commissioner, but no real direction on what other options were available or where the industry was going, perhaps if it was moving away from RFPs, for example. So could you maybe just comment on that scenario and whether the town will look at other procurement options or what the benefits may be?
Ms. McKinney.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the clerk and I did discuss this. The nature of this particular type of work could be so that if you chose not to go through a competitive RFP process, you could do so. That being said, you know, we had participated in this process and the requirements were clear and the clerk was satisfied with the outcomes. I don't know if the clerk would like to supplement the response.
Madam Clerk.
Good evening. I would concur with what Andrea has indicated. And certainly, I think as we move forward, we may see that there may be changes in the approaches taken, especially considering that we will be going through a review of the various codes of conduct, or I should say the code of conduct legislation is currently under review. So that may change moving forward, but as Andrea has indicated, this was the process that was selected that we were going through for this particular term, and notification was given to the current Integrity Commissioner, and he selected not to submit.
Right, thank you. And this was not to doubt the process that was undertaken by any means, but perhaps just a scenario that many of us weren't aware of before, and you know, just it sounds like your departments are willing to look at this procedure by the time it comes before us again. So thank you.
We've got Sherwood, McIntosh, and then Post. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I won't be supporting this only because when I take the correspondence we received from our current commissioner, I don't know if the RFP was the right way of going. I'm a little concerned about the escalated cost that this new agreement would be, and I guess my comment to either Ms. McKinney or the clerk is, do we necessarily have to follow suit with the county? I think we can exclude ourselves and do our own due diligence for finding a commissioner. Do we have to fall within the county?
Ms. McKinney.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did participate in the process. I mean, we could look into if we were to leave the process now and choose to proceed a different way. The clerk did have some comments on the previous rates that had been provided, which we were also anticipating would be increased in a new contract.
Okay. I guess my concern is I don't know if the increases would actually be triple what we're paying now, especially with the retainer going from $90 annually to $2,000 annually. And in some years we didn't even have any files. So, you know, to just give them $2,000 for doing nothing, again, I won't be supporting it only because of what is coming up in for future correspondence.
Well, Councillor Sherwood, I think a retainer is only spent when a file gets started. So I don't know that it's wasting money if there's a retainer on file with a lawyer. And at $100 an hour, there's no lawyer in town that's going to take on something at that rate. So I think we have to be realistic. I have McIntosh and then Post and then Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Sherwood answered one of my questions. I did have two. My only question then, I don't know, do we have any current ongoing investigations? And it's none of my business, but if we do, what happens to those when we switch commissioners?
Madam Clerk.
I can advise that our current Integrity Commissioner has indicated that he will complete the investigations that he has currently with him.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councillor Post and then Councillor Taylor.
My questions were all answered. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Councillor Taylor.
I think mine were too, but I'll say them anyway, and that is the legal fees that we've been getting are an absolute bargain. You would never find any lawyer that would give us the fees that we've been getting from Mr. Giorno. So I don't think that's an issue. And then even moving forward, I'm not concerned about the money, and I don't throw around the town's tax dollars lightly. However, to have someone on file, we absolutely need to have it. I think this council's been quite responsible. We haven't had issues per se or ongoing, but in the past we have, and we should be guarding against the future as well. And that's why we need to have this integrity commissioner set up, and I think it's money well spent and quite cheap. And if I may, to Deputy Mayor, if you read further on in the, I think it might be 13.2, but the commissioner actually lays out what files he has open. There's not details there, but looks like there was 3 this year and 1 was removed and there's 2 open. So
very good. All right, any further comments, councillors, before we vote on this? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
And opposed? Councillor Sherwood is in opposition. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence, we have a number of documents here, 13.1 through 13.11. Madam Clerk, are any of these ones that we need to vote on?
Mr. Mayor, not necessarily vote on, but if I may take you to item 13.4, I think that's the item that you just want to indicate that your name has been submitted to participate in that regard. Right. Very good. Okay, and that was the head of council code of conduct review, I believe. Yeah. That's correct. And then, Mr. Mayor, 13.6, if I may, just for council's information, I believe Nandini would like to make a few remarks with respect to that particular matter. Okay. All right. So let's suggest that we pass a motion here on all of these items, and then we can take comments and questions on specific items before we vote on the group in bulk. So can I have a motion to receive and approve these correspondences, please? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Sherwood. So let's start with any questions or comments on specific items. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I have 2 that I wanted to discuss. Okay. The first one was 13.4. I want to thank you for volunteering, and I'm wondering, I was as well interested in attending this. Are 2 councillors able to participate, or are they specific to 1?
Madam Clerk.
My understanding is that they are specific to 1, but you also may participate in the survey. Okay. All right. Good. And should I say the second one now or wait till we go around the table?
Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
My second one is 13.9. I know we're just receiving this, but let me just get it up here. The resolution makes comment about the town of Mono proposing a 3-board police services model, and I don't believe this council has received a copy of that motion of the town of Mono doing that. And also, I don't think we want to totally do our own resolution the same as this, because do we not want to wait and see what will come back with you, Your Worship, after discussions with the rest of Dufferin County? So I guess there's a couple things. We seem to be missing what the Grand Valley is referring to with Mono's proposal.
This is a motion to receive the correspondence, not to necessarily endorse it.
Debate it. Okay.
That's one. But I know on 2 fronts. I'm aware that Councillor Taylor attended a joint police service board meeting in the last week or so. Some of these issues were discussed, and I think Councillor Taylor, maybe you can correct me, but there was did a motion come out of your meeting of what that joint session wanted to endorse?
There was a motion, and essentially that motion was to understand further about what Deputy Mayor Creelman of Mono had put forth. And I think Councillor Sherwood is correct. It's talking to this point that Grand Valley has seen the letter. Full disclosure, I was reading through this document last night and asked Deputy Mayor Creelman to send that to me because I hadn't seen it either. So I can forward that to council after the fact. But I personally have great concern with this, and I think Councillor Sherwood is right to question it. And the way it was left in my mind, and maybe we're just all playing a little bit of broken telephone, but a couple of meetings ago, we agreed, or maybe we didn't agree, but there was a meeting that was decided upon that the mayors would attend, and the mayors would discuss what potentially would happen, and then this would kind of circle back in a way. And Mayor Brown, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I just literally think I think there's a bit of confusion about what's going on. So from a police services board issue for the town of Orangeville, we have not made any kind of I don't know, statement or
endorsement or statement.
Thank you. Yeah, we haven't done any of that. I do have it on the police services board agenda for our next meeting, which is a week from now, and we'll talk about it. But I think there's two different, well, it was really three different prongs, and one would be this council. What does this council wish? I think the second prong, maybe there's even four. The county. The fourth would be the mayors, and then the police services boards. But it is a bit confusing. And if I may, just the last thing, Your Worship, is that the autonomy of each municipality within Dufferin County is being challenged here. And if you think about what potentially could happen, you could have 3 different boards set up, 2 rural boards and 1 urban board, and the urban board would be Shelburne and Orangeville. But even then, how do you work with what that board would be? If you assume that there would be 1 councillor, 1 resident of Orangeville, and the same for Shelburne, plus provincial people, I mean, the boards could get quite large in a hurry. So there's lots to solve here. And as an Orangevillian, I would suggest that my bias would be is we don't do this. I think Orangeville should have its own board would be my thought. But again, I don't speak for the board and I don't speak for this council. That's just my personal opinion.
So my understanding is the Ministry of Solicitor General has requested that heads of council respond back. Warden White was the first out of the gate with the suggestion that the heads of council of Dufferin County get together and discuss this and come up with a joint statement that would be brought back to each individual council for discussion. We're not at that point yet, but there will be a report brought back to council for May 31st meeting. The submittal to the Minister of Solicitor General has to happen before June the 7th. And frankly, you know, whatever that endorsement or whatever that suggestion going in isn't necessarily what's going to happen. The province is going to do what they want to do, and they're going to listen to us, but, you know, they could dismiss everything and just decide whatever they want to do. So we're at their mercy to some extent, but we can certainly give a very strong recommendation of what our wishes are. I know that I've heard grumblings that 3-party recommendation by Councillor Creelman wasn't well received in Shelburne either. They felt that Orangeville might be overpowering them in a joint council for urban. And I know Councillor Taylor, the way the legislation is written currently, you can have either 5, I think 7 or 9 members on a police services board. So a joint police services board of Shelburne and Orangeville could grow to 9 members under the current legislation. Whether or not they would increase that number, you know, is yet to be determined, but we'll have a chance to kick this around at our next meeting and come up with a statement that we're all happy with. So, and I'm sure the feelings of the police service board will weigh into that once we get that in the next couple of weeks. Any further comments, Councillor Andrews?
This would be for another correspondence item. Can I proceed?
Yeah. Are we good on the PSB issue here? We're good? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Andrews.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship. This would be for correspondence item 13.5 in the CTC Source Protection Region Clean Water Risk Management Plans. I noticed on page 127, it references the town of Orangeville and a number of threats. And so I know that this is, again, correspondence, and I have to commend again Mr. Jones and the reports that Council has received regarding our water system and also the risk management. But could Mr. Jones provide just some clarification to this, because it does highlight the fact that the town is in fact mentioned. And just for the sake of my assurance and maybe other members of Council, we have an understanding of what they're asking regarding this correspondence.
Who would you like to answer that question, sir?
Mr. Jones. I guess Mr. Jones, I was posing the question to. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, the source protection plan does identify significant drinking water threats throughout the watershed. And those significant drinking water threats have also been identified for Orangeville. The risk management official within the town reviews those threats, and for many of those threats, there is a requirement to put together risk management plans, and that is currently in process. There's a variety of reasons. It could be that there is an industry that stores a certain type of chemical on its property. It may deal with snow storage or salt application. And all of those risk management plans need to be discussed and set up with property owners. We even have our risk management plans with town facilities as well. Ultimately, this decision of the Source Protection Committee to grant a 3-year approval or extension on some of these risk management plans was in part due to the ambitious schedule that was set out initially, but part of it was also due to the pandemic. When the pandemic began, many businesses struggled, and I don't believe they would have welcomed a phone call from the risk management official saying we need to sit down and start working out a risk management plan for some of your operation. So some of that work was put on hold, and because of it, there is this 3-year extension, which should allow us to move forward with this. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Andrews. If there's anything else, I'm happy to answer it.
And Mr. Jones, it certainly does. Thank you. Just again, reviewing this correspondence, I wasn't sure if it was highlighting any red flags, but you've provided me with assurances that all is in order. Thank you.
Councillor Sherwood and then Councillor Peters.
Yes, Your Worship. Sorry, I was just going through my notes and I missed one more here that I had a comment about. On 13.6, there's funding request, and I was going to recommend that this be, that we suggest that this go through our community grant application. Perhaps we could have the treasurer comment about that. Are they too late for that?
Madam Treasurer.
To Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood and the rest of Council. So that was one of the update I was going to bring forth. So this group the group did submit a community grant application as of Friday of last week. So they are now seeking 1,000. What I'm not 100% sure of whether they're seeking 1,000 in addition to the 500 that they are seeking on the letter. So I will be bringing a formal report back to Council on May 31st.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Peters. And then
Councillor Sherwood beat me to it. It was the exact same question.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I'd like to speak to 1310 and 1311, and I do so reluctantly because I feel like I'm letting, I'm opening a can of worms here, and it's not going to be fun. But this bylaw, although I offer great respect to the writers of 1310 and 1311, and certainly they have valid points. The bylaw, as I watched the previous council go through it, and I think back to Councillor Wilson with his great dry wit and talking about lighting a cigarette and not being allowed to do that in his own backyard. The bylaw is quite repressive in lots of ways. And so although I do think we need a bylaw, if left was repressive and right was more open, I think I would lean to the right on this. There is in particular one street in town that has townhouses on it, and it's called Benjamin. And Benjamin has townhouses that have very large lots with no one behind them. And because of the way the bylaw is written, those residents who own those properties, by the way, can't have fires in their backyard. So I don't know what to do about it. I bring it up here simply because there's writing's been in. We're in a COVID environment and there's families there that want to have fires. I did follow up with the fire department. There is no sensitive receptors in that area. And yet, because of the way it's written, we can't do anything about it. So what I've done is put it back to the residents and said to them, if there's a large group of you who feel the same way, then, please come to council and we'll discuss it. I guess my purpose here today is to let the residents know they've been heard and to inform the rest of council that, this might be coming. And I guess to warn everybody, I mean, as soon as you open this bylaw up, if that's what we decide to do as a council, it's certainly not going to be fun for anyone, because I remember how difficult it was last time. But there's areas of it that just don't make any sense to me. And those people on Benjamin penalized because they're in a townhouse and yet they have massive yards would be on that list. So anyway, just an FYI for everyone in terms of what's going on.
Okay, Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yeah, real quick, I concur with Councillor Taylor. When this bylaw first came out, I didn't agree with it at all. I thought it was way too restrictive. I must admit, though, again, talking to the fire department, there haven't been a lot of complaints and concerns about it. The sensitive receptors, I didn't think that would ever work in a million years, but I must admit it seems to be working. Everything seems to be working. So, unless people on Benjamin are really complaining, it's something we maybe want to leave alone. But if the public gets together and that's what they want, sure, we can look into it. To me, it seems to be working, which I must admit surprises me.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, there were one or two lots on Benjamin that have very large, wide lots, but most of them are quite narrow, and it was the setback requirement from fences that was the problem there. So, that's opening up that. I don't know if the fire department would support such a move, but
if I could
anyway,
go bylaw, I'd just take out townhouses and I'd have the measurements in. But again, I apologize. I know we're not debating it here, so thank you, Your Worship, for indulging me.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen of the council, we have a motion here to receive all of this correspondence. We have heard that Madam Treasurer is going to come back on 13.6 on May 31st with some further thought and understanding of the amount of money that's being asked under that. But other than that, can we? We've got a motion. Let's all vote. All in favor of receiving all of these?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Moving on to 14, this is a recommendation the minutes of the following meetings be received. That is the Library Board minutes of February the 24th, 2021. May I have a motion to receive that, please? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Post. All in favor? Thank you. Now we have item 15, notice of motion prior to meeting. This is 15.1, a motion from Councillor Post and Councillor Peters regarding mobile food vendors bylaw. Wonder if Councillor Post or Peters could give a little Coles Notes version of what we're talking about here for the public.
I'll let Councillor Post go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So the background, or I'm not going to read the whole motion, it's all there and pretty self-explanatory, but just a little bit of background of why this was brought forward is Councillor Peters and I received correspondence from a local resident who was working with a potential food truck owner, and they were finding some difficulties navigating to find a location because of the nature of the 90 meters from another food establishment within the borders of town. When dug a little deeper into the bylaw, Councillor Peters and I found that there were exemptions made as long as the restaurants or food vendors that were within those 90 meters signed off that they were okay with that mobile food vendor being there. So after back and forth discussion, we spoke with the clerk, and what was decided was probably the best way was not to limit this change to the bylaw to just being this one particular food vendor who was looking for the exemption. Instead, what we wanted to do was update the bylaw to leave council out of it a little bit more and to allow people who are looking for a mobile food vendor's license to approach the necessary people, approach bylaw first of all to get their vendor license, and then to, if they're, once they find out what's in the radius of where they're looking to put it, that they can then fill out the exemption forms, have those answered by the local restaurants that are within that 90-meter proximity. And if those conditions were met, they could go ahead and place their mobile food truck there. So that's kind of the background to it. And Councillor Peters, if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I don't think so. I think the whole point, as you mentioned, was being inclusive of the opinions of the surrounding businesses, and rather than putting a hard line that could be somewhat arbitrary based on, you know, the nature of the businesses that surround them. This gives people an opportunity to negotiate and be good neighbors, and, you know, all share in the customer base.
Okay, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, I will be supporting this motion. I think it's a good idea. If they can get agreement from the surrounding businesses that are affected, then I say this is something we should be supporting. I just wanted to confirm, after reading the bylaw, and I wanted to make it clear that in order to just make it clear, we're collecting a fee or a fund because the businesses around that area are contributing to our tax base, whether it be through lease or owning the building. They're contributing property taxes. So they don't want somebody coming in and saying, oh, you're not paying taxes and you're taking away some of my business. So as long as we are collecting a fee, which I read in the report, then that would maybe help ease some of the minds of some of those businesses. Can the clerk verify?
I can confirm that the applicable license fee still applies.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, unlike Councillor Sherwood, I will not be supporting this. I feel that our small restaurateurs who have invested in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars in their businesses and are paying thousands of dollars per month in rent need all the support they can get. And somebody wants to spend $20,000 on a trailer and compete with them, I'm not in support of it. So I will be voting no on this item. All right, anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Post.
Just to clarify to what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, if the food truck was going to be parking in the proximity of any of the local businesses that you're speaking of, they would still have to get their written consent by the owner of that business that they will okay with them being there.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think the bylaw stands on its own. I think it's fine the way it is.
No, fair enough.
I don't see any point in making any changes. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just think anytime you're getting to a controversial vote, you should always offer the what and the why of what you're doing. And to me, I like the fact that car dealerships are together. I think it breeds a good business model. I think one of the best things that could happen to this town was having the new Greystones come in. It elevates dining in the town and allows competition and brings more people to the area. And I think this will do the same. So I will be voting in favor of the bylaw, and thank you very much, Councillor Post and Councillor Peters, for this.
Very good. Okay, and any further comments? Any further comments, councillors, on this item? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Has the BIA been made aware of this? Councillor Sherwood?
No, because not that I'm aware of. This isn't limiting it just to being located in the BIA.
True. Okay, thank you.
Very good. If there's no further comments, sorry, did we have we did have a motion and a seconder on this already?
You.
Madam Clerk? Okay, yeah. All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? Mayor Brown is opposed. Great, thank you. Moving on to notices of motion at meeting. Councillors, anything? Seeing none. New business. Any new business, councillors? I just wish to make a comment that today is the start of Nurses Week. Our nurses in our community have been, you know, some of the tireless frontline essential workers. I come from a family of nurses. My mother and my sister are both nurses. I know how hard they work and what an important profession it is. And I just wanted to make a comment that we all owe a deep debt of gratitude to nurses for helping us through this pandemic. And every day, the nurses are who are looking after us primarily when we're in hospital, and the doctors are providing obviously the key diagnoses, but nurses are who take care of us when we're in hospital. So I just wanted to have a big shout out to all the nurses in Ontario and celebrate them this week. Any further comments, councillors, on new business? Madam Clerk, question period. Do we have any questions from the public?
We do not.
Very good. Moving on to 19, bylaws. I'm going to read them off here. These are bylaws, recommendations that the bylaws listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. A bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of taxes required for the town of Orangeville for the year 2021 and collection of County of Dufferin and education taxes. A bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of a limiting distance agreement between Christoph Drozdowski and Betty Drozdowski and Steady Corporation. A bylaw to authorize the acquisition of property 30 Centennial Road, and a bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of a lease agreement with the Orangeville District Senior Citizens Club for 26 Matthias Street. A bylaw to appoint Charles A. Harnick as Integrity Commissioner and authorize the entering into an agreement with ADR Chambers, Inc., and to repeal bylaw 2016-081. Also, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville as regular council meeting held on May the 10th, 2021. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Peters. All in favor?
Yes.
And who had 840?
Sorry, Your Worship, I was going to ask if you
Councillor Sherwood.
842.
I was trying to ask you before you called the vote to pull out about the bylaw for the Integrity Commissioner and vote on it separately, please.
Oh, okay. We can do that. Let's vote on everything except the Integrity Commissioner bylaw. All in favor?
Yes.
All right, and now to vote on the bylaw to appoint Charles A. Harnick. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Councillor Sherwood is opposed to that specific bylaw. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A motion to adjourn, please. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Post. All in favor? All right, folks. Thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone.
All the best.
Great night.
Thank you.